Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to our witnesses. The quickest way to end the pandemic is to vaccinate as many people as possible. There's growing evidence from the UK and other allied countries that the first dose of a two-dose vaccine provides as much protection as other one-shot versions and equally reduces the spread. According to the New England Journal of Medicine, the Pfizer vaccine provides 92.6% efficacy, while the second dose only marginally increases this. By giving the first dose to as many people as possible and slightly delaying the second dose, the scientific research shows significantly curbs the virus's spread by increasing the number of people protected. That's why so many other countries are doing one shot for everyone first to cover as many people as possible. And I want to thank my colleague across the aisle, Congressman Foster, for spearheading this effort. And I'm hopeful that the Biden administration will respond soon to our letter. Continuing to give two doses will delay protection for many and may cost lives. A year ago, the American people were told that we needed 2 weeks to flatten the curve. The next 12 months were unlike any other we've ever seen. Broad, one-size-fits-all lockdowns brought devastating consequences for millions of Americans. Screenings for cancer and other serious health conditions were and still are down. States imposed restrictive shutdown orders. Schools were shut down and moved to computer screens. Thousands of businesses permanently closed their doors. Meanwhile, young people face a serious educational and mental health crisis, as many have not stepped foot in a classroom in months. Millions of children are not getting the mental health counseling provided by their school system. Youth mental health visits to the emergency department have increased by 30%, 30+% in our country. And a CDC survey in August estimated that a quarter of young adults admitted to having thoughts of suicide. The death rate from suicide has not yet been reported. The lockdowns have continued long past the point when they ceased to make sense. In fact, less than 300 children have died to COVID, yet a 10% increase in suicide kills far more, since the average death to suicide fluctuates between 4,000 and 6,000 a year. The science is clear that in-person learning is the best option for students and teachers and will save lives. We know this. It's long past time to reopen America's schools. The failure to do so is a failure to put service to students over control by the unions and selfish politicians. Instead, the so-called stimulus passed by the Democrats rewards lockdowns that states and teachers unions are pressing to keep their schools shuttered. Congress is sending over $120 billion in additional money to schools, but most $68 billion allocated for schools over the past year still hasn't even been spent. In fact, the CBO estimates that only 5% of this new funding will be spent this fiscal year. The bill actually postpones the money into future years to support and incentivize these closures, or as long as I described above, incentivizing harming children. Hundreds of billions of dollars are going to reward states for dogmatically imposing lockdowns. This payoff to blue states and cities is destroying lives, and it's time the truth be told. You've heard my colleagues across the aisle pat themselves on the back for this almost $2 trillion more to our debt, while almost $1 trillion of previously approved COVID relief hasn't even been spent yet. All so we can reward those states that closed. This isn't a relief plan. It's not about COVID. It's a spending spree with the taxpayer's credit card. Mr. Kudlow, former Clinton Treasury Secretary and Obama economic advisor Larry Summers wrote that $1.9 trillion stimulus will, and I quote, set off inflationary pressures of a kind we have not seen in a generation, with consequences for the value of the dollar and financial stability. Sir, could you explain those consequences to this, what it'll mean to our economy, to our trade, the value of the dollar, et cetera?